What to do if you find a snuff film in your Halloween candy. Why are you so pale? David said with a punchable smirk. The joke didn't even work anymore, as I was now in full costume and the apparently permanent face paint seemed at home. It began 3 days ago, when I wore the same Beetlejuice costume to an early Halloween party. I picked it up at Largo's, a small store nestled in the center of town that sold costumes and masks throughout October, and party gimmicks for the rest of the year. The old European guy who ran the place, who I assumed was called Largo, had a reputation for selling some pretty high-quality stuff. I felt like I had an unlucky soul for buying one of the duds. I painted my face white, with exaggerated black bags around the eyes, just as the picture on the front of the package suggested. Although my constant washing and scrubbing of my face had dulled it, it was still firmly there, and my friends didn't let me forget it. I counted down the minutes until the 31st, when I could finally go outside again and blend in. I wasn't the worst dressed in our posse of 12-year-olds. Most of the costumes were homemade and held together by a mix of safety pins and wishful thinking. A group of five set out on our last annual sugar hunt. There was an air of finality and we knew it, but didn't let that get in the way of our tradition. We weren't the best of friends and some barely spoke at school, but every Halloween the five of us, who all lived on the same cul-de-sac, would assemble for trick or treating. That figure of five did not include Shane, Michael's little brother who'd been tagged with chaperoning. Shane was dressed as a plush pumpkin, which went down well with the old women whose doors we'd knock on. They'd all target him like a guided missile, cooing and pinching his cheeks. Apart from one. Her name was Esther, and she had scared me ever since I was a toddler. She was an old woman when my mother was a teen, and so must have been at least in her 80s when the following events occurred. Her nose was like a bony finger reaching out from her face and covered in warts. Her eyes were small and cold, and seemed to spew hatred whenever she looked at you. She'd only ever wear these self-knitted turtleneck sweaters, the quality of which declined over the years along with her cognition. I was too young to remember, but many years later my mother told me that the birthmark on my back only appeared after Esther had babysat me when I was 2. Her and my grandmother were close friends at the time, but fell out shortly before her health declined and she passed away. Nowadays, Esther had no friends and no family either. She still lived alone, however, and brushed off the attempt of any concerned neighbor to have her sent to a retirement home. The plan was simple. We'd knock on her door and see what candy she had to give us. Depending on the standard she had to offer, we'd either take an extra handful each and leave, or, if it wasn't up to scratch, Olivia was carrying a sack full of egg cartons primed to hurl. That was the jewel in the crown of our evening, however, and we had a few hours and dozens of more houses to go before we arrived at her overgrown front porch.